Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In Your Head with Shannon Standiford. Today's guest is somebody that I literally just met right before we started the interview. His name is Pete. He is from the Pete versus Anxiety podcast. This guy everything just happened so quick, just everything just kind of aligned. We were both free, and I was super excited. I am always in just great joy whenever I get a chance to do one of these interviews. You guys know me. I really like to get to know people. So we had a wonderful conversation. And I would not be, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what the hell is going on in the world right now. There's a lot of just horrible things that are going on, and I want all of you guys to know that everybody thinks that they're right, but nobody cares about what other people are thinking. Empathy is a great thing, and we need more of that. We need a lot more understanding. We need both sides of the world to be a lot better at seeing where everyone else is at, instead of just assuming that your opinion is the only opinion that matters. That has never worked well in history. We need to be better at that. That being said, pray for all of you. I hope everyone is being safe, because the winter is just been crazy. Apparently Greenland decided to send all their weather here. It was literally colder here than it was up in Canada. I didn't appreciate that. But I hope, if you're listening or if you're watching, that you are safe and you are warm, and I pray for everybody. I also really, really need to put this out here. If you're in a place that, you need help, ask for it. Go get it. The world is not always great, and the darkness is very consuming. It is very alluring. Do not. Be the light. That's what the show has always been about, is being the light. So, let's get back to business here. Let's go find out what it's like in Pete's head.
Quiet of the night where dreams take flight, voices whisper softly, shining like the stars so bright. Every heart has a story, don't you ever forget. Let's open our minds, share the journey, no regret. Here we gather, a circle of hope, sharing laughter and tears, we learn just how to cope. Every tale we tell, it helps to heal our souls. In the space of understanding, together we become whole. So let the words flow, let the music rise. In your head with Shannon, the stories come alive. Every heartbeat echoes where our spirits thrive. From fears to triumphs, we'll paint the skies anew. In this podcast journey, I'm here with you.
Well, welcome everybody, and today I've got Pete from Pete versus Anxiety podcast. So first and foremost, thank you for coming on the show. We just literally had kind of met on Messenger, and schedules aligned. Boom, here we are. So it's a cold open. We don't really know much about each other, and that's the great thing about this show, is that meeting people, hearing their stories, without having to do really any background, because I really just enjoy hearing everybody's story. So, Pete, the first question, first, thank you for coming on the show.
Not a problem, man. Appreciate it.
So the second thing that I do here is, the first question is always the most basic. We go all the way back. What was Pete's childhood like?
I was abandoned at 10 years old. It was a rough childhood. My parents divorced when I was 10. And I spent a lot of time by myself, though, so I had a lot of time to do things on my own. I kind of was I kind of was like, I kind of grew up by myself a little bit, because my siblings lived with my mom, so I'd see them on the weekends and everything like that. So it was just pretty much Pete by himself doing whatever Pete wanted to do, pretty much, because nobody could tell me, because nobody was ever home half the time. So I walked home from school every day, came home, and pretty much had the Cadillac life most kids wish for. It's like you can come home, do whatever you want, nobody tell you what to do.
Well, that sounds. I mean, ideally, that does sound like a great, but as a kid, that's I mean, and looking back, I mean, did that worry you at all? I mean, like, I mean, you're 10 years old. You shouldn't be having to have that kind of a life. You should have, the structure. What was your, I guess, like your parental life like
Well, my
around you?
my
Would you
my
have a,
dad My dad was around. I lived with my dad when I was 10. My parents went into divorce. My mom and I got into a disagreement. She dropped me at his doorstep and told me basically it was his problem now. So she ended up leaving me with him. So I ended up moving in with my dad because originally the three of us were living with my mom. So when I moved in with my dad works nights. So he would either be sleeping during the day or whatever girlfriend he was with at the time would kind of sort of keep an eye on me. But I was like, the way at my school worked is like I got home before anybody else did anything. So either he'd be asleep or he would be home. So it's just kind of me doing my own thing and come home, just kind of hang out, do my own thing at first. And it was like that all through high school too. Like he just worked with jobs he had to do to pay the bills, and then his girlfriend, whoever was there at the time, would usually keep an eye on me. Then when I was in high school, I was really just kind of doing my own thing still. It's been like that through all through middle school because I was right about middle schools when I went to live with him because I finished elementary school with my mom and they were still kind of together, but you could tell they weren't going to last because they kept arguing all the time. But then when I got into middle school area, I lived with him from there out, and it was like close enough I could walk down the street to school. So I'd walk to school every day. Every kid's dream is to walk to school. So I was doing that. And when I came home, is he'd either be asleep or he'd be at work already. Just kind of kept to myself. Probably not the greatest idea, but it was the '90s. They didn't do things like they do nowadays. There wasn't a lot of that. A lot of parents around, they pretty much had a lot of unsupervised things to do. Like you could play outside back in the '90s versus now you can't even go in your front lawn without someone trying to steal your kid.
wow, yeah, yeah, that is a far, far different world that we live in since, since our day. Because
Right.
I'm about to be 43 and I had a whole conversation with my kids about how life was different, and I would go and list all these things that we used to do about
Right.
how I could go and ride a freaking bicycle, like basically like two towns over, come back, and not anybody knew what the hell I was doing. Nowadays, like at least with my kids, I'm like they leave like the front porch area or like in front of my apartment, and I'm like, hey, where the fuck they go?
Right, exactly. Where y'all going? What are you doing out there? My mom was like that, dude. She put us outside the house on Saturday mornings, man, and you were gone. That's it. You're gone all day. We didn't come up till like 9 o'clock at night most nights because that was just what you could do. Remember, we're in the '90s. So you got to remember, we didn't have all those weird things to worry about. A lot of us played out till whenever. My mom
Oh
kicked you
yeah.
out and you went and hung out in the neighborhood with all your friends and everything like that. But then when I moved to my dad, I didn't have a lot of friends at first because where we were in an apartment at first. So like I didn't know anybody there. It was just kind of me by myself. And then when we got to high school, I started meeting new people. I actually went to two high schools because the freshman year I went to one place and then we moved to another place, and that's who we eventually got remarried that time. And that's where I started making a lot of friends then. So like till sophomore year and my middle school years, I kind of was solo by myself. But after that, then I started making some friends and things like that too, because you were in school and things like that. And everybody lived really relatively close. We were in a little town in the middle of Illinois, like the middle, literally the middle of everywhere. Everything closest thing to you was Walmart. That's how small this town was. And then like 15 miles down the road, the opposite direction was like the mall and everything like that too. So, but it was nice to. I kind of liked the solidarity. It probably wasn't great, but it was just like you're by yourself, you can just do your own thing. You didn't have nobody telling you what to do. Just living that dream, man. But it probably wasn't the greatest idea, honestly. But you do what you do, man. I had to survive the way I had to survive. So
And speaking of that kind of mentality, what kind of with that mentality, what does that do to you mentally? Like emotionally. Did you have to like like feel? Did
um,
you feel like you had to grow up like a lot quicker than you should have?
sometimes yes, sometimes no, because there was really a lot of decision making at first. I kind of just decided what I was going to do. There really wasn't any like adult like decisions I had to make. I could feed myself. Things like that. I was at that age I could feed myself anyways. It wasn't a big deal. Or somebody to have dinner made for me, or one of my dad's girlfriends to make dinner. and things like that. I just kind of did whatever I wanted to do, played the video games, watched whatever I wanted to watch. I did all that kind of stuff. And it was like. Now it's like you can see a lot of the similar traits now, like to be alone. Like when I'm by myself, is when I'm at the happiest. I don't like big groups of people. It gets
Yeah.
better. It gets better now with me doing the podcast and things like that, interviewing other people and things like that. I can have social interactions, but usually I'd like to be by myself. I just kind of stay by myself. I tend to be a really I live. My mom likes to say I look like a mole man because I don't. I work nights, so like when I work nights and I come home and record the show during the day, the rest of the time I'm usually sleeping. So that's pretty much all my life has been for like the last year and a half. And I was married too, mind you. Okay, so I was when I was married, it was like that too. My wife would say the same thing. She's like, "You're like a mole man because you just don't like to leave the house." I'm like, I was never like this. Like I grew up like all these years by myself. So now it's like this is just normality to me. Anything outside of that, it's just an uncomfortable thing for me. And she was the outdoors person. She liked to be outdoors, go do all these things, and I was just like, eh. Social settings were not my favorite place to be in, but I could manage social settings easily. I can handle being in a social setting, but I had to be forced to go into them, and it's like, nowadays it's the same way. I'm just kind of like, if I don't have to be in a group of people, I'd rather not be. I'd rather just be by myself, remotely by myself. But that's just because that normality is there from when I was a kid. All them years by myself, it just feels right to me now. So, and it doesn't help though when I'm like, when I have depression and things, I just want to be left alone. I just live in my own space by myself. And it's like, while recording the show, like people didn't realize I was going through it bad, man. I was really depressed. Like I'm talking like the black hole swallow you kind of thing. Like literally, if the earlier videos, if you watch what the room I'm in when I'm recording them, I never left that room all day. I'd literally come home from work, I do what I have to do, get everything together, and I'd stay in that room all day. So if I had to record, which well, at first I was doing 5 days a week, 2 interviews a day, um, I would literally do the interviews and then I turn the light off and go back to lay down in the room and just stay in complete darkness. And it was just like I was comforted in my own depression, which is really bad, really, really bad for me because it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And nobody knew I was struggling, and nobody knew the signs to look for. They didn't realize what's going on. And if I had this conversation, 90% of people they wouldn't even know what to say to you. Half the time they want to tell you to cheer up, and other times it's like they give out the worst advice. But I mean, they have the best intentions, but don't understand that you're not helping with saying that, and telling me to cheer up and asking me what's wrong. I'm lying to you every time because you're not asking the right questions, and people don't know what to ask people like that.
Oh, I definitely agree because I know whenever I started my podcast, it was literally, I'd say, right before the world started shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And like at that time, like everything was going great. People like I was out. And then boom, the world shuts down. And like I mean, at that point, I'm single, so I mean, like I still had my kids. I got to see
Mm-hmm.
them like on the weekends, but my entire existence, but if it wasn't for my day job, I'd come home. I had like you, I had so many like almost every day I had like like a interview set up. I'd line things up to where I had something to do. But after that hour or so that you interview somebody, you sit there and you just kind of shut down, and
Mm-hmm.
and like I think or it was around that time like my entire like that all that depression, anxiety, and all that stuff started really kind of coming back in. And like you said, like well, I'm interviewing people about their life, all the things that they're going through, and I just was not even trying to show that like I was struggling because I had literally went through a mental breakdown during during that first year of the show. And the only people that really knew were literally the people that saw me have that fucking just meltdown while I
Yeah.
was at my work. So and I don't think people really understand, um especially around I mean I mental health has been going around for fucking centuries. And I'm glad now that there's a lot more people talking about it. But you fast forward like what was it, like 6 years ago, whenever I started my show, not a lot of people talked about it. It made people super uncomfortable.
It still does, depending on what subjects you get into, for sure, man. When I started this show, I looked it up to see what people were doing what because I was just curious. And it's mostly doctors. It's like, okay, so we're the average Joes just talking about these things. So when I started this show and I pitched the idea, I had no idea the response I was going to get. I got like 150 responses right off the rip. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. Because I was only doing 1 day a week. And I was starting a live show because I got offered to join a podcasting network when I posted about it. Someone had reached out and asked me, like, hey, would you be interested? We'll pay for all the software. I'm like, all right, cool, that works for me. You're gonna pay for everything? Hey, even better. What the heck? What do I got to lose at this point? And when we started it, it was every week, every Monday at 10 a.m. I had a show that I did live on YouTube and everything else and all these other kind of things. And then I added a second time slot because I asked the network, I said, hey, listen, can I do a second show? Because there's nobody doing anything. And they were like, yeah, why not? Go ahead. So then I filled up all within the year. So come November, I'm only out to 2025 of July of just people lined up to be on this show. And it was crazy because it was only for 2 time slots. And I'm like all the way to July 2025. And it's like, oh man, there's a lot of people that want to talk about these things. It could be somebody that's a therapist, somebody does something in the area of that retrospect or energy healing, people that just want to tell some stories, and things like that too. And then the beginning of the year, I opened my schedule, which probably wasn't a great idea because I'm at 5 days a week, 2 interviews a week, or 2 interviews a day some days 3, depending on how much demand I had. Because I was using a booking site to do a lot of it too, and I was getting paid to do it. So I was like, all right, well, why not? Let's go for it, And it was great, but at the same time, probably not the greatest decision because after the first year of the show, I did like 200 plus interviews with people. March alone, I did like 34 or something like that, and I was not sleeping, and my mental health was deteriorating as it was going, and like I said, people didn't know anything about it, and I didn't really say much to anyone. And then when I started talking more about what was going on in the vaccine, a lot of people are just shocked. They didn't know what to say, which is okay because it's understandable. A lot of these conversations that happen, people don't know what to say in them or they don't know what to do. And, at the end of the day, a lot of people just forget and maybe asking the individual, like, hey, how can I help you? Because I've had a few sessions where I freaked the hell out at work, and dealt with a lot of things like that. PTSD is a new one I've gotten now. It's just, me and my ex really had a bad falling out kind of thing. I told her I was on the edge and she told me basically make her the 13th reason why. And it wasn't the first time I'd been there. I've been there a few times and nobody even knew. No one had a single clue until I started talking more about it and opened up about myself during like the second half of the first season. I started doing more episodes on other people's shows and things and I started coming out a little more about it. I think the one I really started opening up was like Humanity 2.0 was a show I did with a friend of mine. She and I were discussing it the other day. Said that my episode was the #1 download one on Spotify of her episodes, and she was like, "Man, that's crazy." And it's like, well, and I like recently I told the whole story, what happened, and things like that too. And it's getting easier to talk about my own stuff, because like if I was honest with most people, I was lying to you every single day. Everybody asking me if I'm okay, and I really wasn't, But like I said, though, it comes back to what if you had a conversation with somebody? Oh, listen, I thought about killing myself today. Most people are going to freak out, dude. They're going to run for the hills and go, oh no, I don't want to be a part of this conversation because I don't know what to say. Like, what am I going to say? And then it's like they look at you weird and go, well, I don't want to say something that's going to upset you and make you go over there. But really nothing you could do. If I'm far enough along, nothing you say matters once I get to a certain stage of it. If I've already decided, I've already had the plan, there's nothing you're going to say to me that's going to set me off, that's going to do it. I've already have the intentions of doing it. All you can do at this point is try and get some help from me because at that point, I've already made the decision. Nothing you say at that point, I'm listening to. I'm hearing you say words, but I'm not hearing the words.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. All right. So let's talk about it. When was the last time you either contemplated or you tried
5 months ago
to unalive yourself?
5 months ago, had a plan. I had the plan in place. I was seconds away from it, and something told me to stop. I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you. It was divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. Something stopped me from doing it because I was that close to the edge because I just was done with everything. It was the arguments between my wife and I and everything else. I was stressing out. My depression was an all-time high. I was just getting swallowed, and no one else could see that I was struggling. And I tried to talk to her about it. In fact, it was funny, before I even decided this, was I tried to talk to her and she told me it was the wrong time. She said, oh, this isn't the right time. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me go reschedule it for you to what works for your schedule. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you say that to somebody? And then that's when she said, okay, well, next time make me the 13th reason why. Okay, so why she says this now, I said, so why would you tell somebody that? She said, well, because I was trying to scare you. you're basically confirming I should go for it. Like I don't understand your logic. You just because that worked with one person doesn't that mean that's going to work with me? Yeah, yeah. See,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, dude. I was just like, what? Say what? And then we recently had a conversation. She said she still stands by that answer.
Well, that's a choice.
Yeah,
It's a very odd choice, but okay. I mean, if I guess, if you're gonna stand by something, if you're gonna say something, I guess, go 10 toes down on it. But, probably not the wisest thing because, you're literally playing chicken with somebody that really just at that point in their lives, and as somebody that is a 6-time failure at that, not the thing to play chicken with. So,
yeah. She had a messed up childhood, and her thought process was way off. But I'm just like thinking, why did you say that? And then her answer was just like the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. Well, I scared somebody before saying that. I'm like, that's not what you say to somebody. So then after that conversation, she started acting really weird. So like anything I'd say, she'd be like, "Oh, should we call 988? Should we call 988?" It's like, "No, dude. Now see now you're just being weird about things because I told you this, you know exactly what happened, and now you're just making it awkward. You're doing that thing that everybody else does. It just starts like making it weird because you can, because you're trying to weaponize everything I say." And it's like I just didn't get it, man. It was just like I just couldn't do it anymore. And so eventually we ended up splitting, and she told me to leave, so I left. And then she blamed me for that. Well, why'd you leave? Because you told me to leave. What do you mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been divorced twice, and I've had those conversations in relationships, and with some of my exes. I became, and that's the hard part. I think is that people talk like when you're in that area, and you're like, okay, let me try to talk about it. Like, and then it gets brushed away.
Mhm.
Or or it gets weaponized, and I feel like that's a reason why men especially just shut down.
Yeah.
And at least on this show, I interview a lot of women, and so like I don't necessarily get a lot of men coming on here because men, like the way that we grew up in that time frame, we were always told, shut the fuck up about it. Just push through, just rub some dirt in it, everything will be fine. I know, like at least my wake up call, like I was probably like maybe 10 seconds away from doing something really stupid, and I got a text message from a friend of mine that just said 3 words, and I've said it on the show several times. It was just 3 words, and I will always remember it. It was, "I appreciate you,"
Yeah.
and I don't know what it was about that message, but everything about me at that point just changed. And then a couple weeks later, boom, I start I start doing the show, and I start interviewing people. Like I started with friends, and I got like reached out on Facebook, and kind of like I recently just did, and how we got connected, and people were just like there was a surprisingly amount of people that were willing to talk about life and where their deepest darkest moments. And to me it's refreshing because to me as first of all, I'm in awe of like how busy you are, and how good you're doing. That's amazing. uh to me, I was never really about the like views, downloads, like becoming the next big thing. It was always like if I could reach one person, that's all that matters to me. If your story can reach one person that's listening or watching, that's what I want. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
Because there's always that one person that is looking, that whether they want to admit it or not, there's always that one person that is looking for somebody that understands them. And to me, that is far more important than any kind of, I guess, success as whenever it comes to these, like to podcasts. Because I maybe it's just me, and like I always grew up super I had to grow up really really humble, like poor, always fought for like a little bit of attention, you like blah blah blah. And so like I know what it was like to be ignored or just overlooked or pushed around or rumors and picked on and all this stuff. And I always thought in my head, I was like, there was no way that I was wanting to live a life like that. And so like I was like, okay, I got like maybe the world would be better off if I wasn't here. And then the more I started talking about it, the more, especially in interviewing people, I realized that there are so many people out there that feel the same way that I do, or think the same way that I do. Have those same, maybe not the same thoughts, but in that same general area.
Similar in some way, your story lines up in some way. Something matches up, or they've had similar thoughts, but they're in the same thought space you are. I've had some wild stories when it comes to suicide. I did a couple episodes on suicide awareness. One woman I interviewed said her husband killed himself. Okay, so then she had to tell her 10-year-old and her 7-year-old. Okay, she's trying to tell these kids that daddy unfortunately killed himself. And the way she did it, she explained it like it was colors. Daddy saw black all the time. He didn't see, whatever. And the way she was doing it was so interesting, and it was probably one of the wildest stories you've ever heard. She's like telling these kids, because most people don't tell kids that, and which is bad because like now they're going to be traumatized because they think something else happened. And when you really tell them what happened to their parent, then it's like, it's so I am supposed to meet with them though. But when I did the show, it wasn't about the numbers. The only thing I've gotten advice wise in the beginning was from a guy who runs a podcast called Come On Man. He does like he's a men's coach or whatever. Paul Bauer is the name of the guy that does it though. But me and Paul, we talked early on when he was starting to do it on TikTok. And funny part is that, we met on TikTok. I said, Paul, can I ask you a question? He said, yeah. I said, what would you say is your best advice to somebody starting a podcast? And he said, always be consistent. So ever since then, I've had that same standard, just being consistent at the same time, same day. And then as I went on, when I got to season 2, I had everything planned out already, like everything. So like I'm pre-recorded right now currently for season 2 to be done by February. Or no, by March, my bad. I'm by March. So by March, I'm already pre-recorded. So now what I'm recording is season 3 now. And my calendar is still booking into April now, but now I bulk record them. So I can, from any day of the week, any day from Mondays and Tuesdays, I can have from 2 to 6 interviews a day. But that's so I can stay so far ahead that the rest of the week I can do everything else. I can promote the stuff, I can send the stuff out, and I learned a lot of like automated features and things I can use, and I mentor other people that want to do podcasting. I bring them in. I just show them the ropes. Like I just show them what I know. I'm like, the numbers really don't matter at first. Like if you're worried about downloads, you're in the wrong space. Like you can't worry about everybody's success. I've got friends that've got 15,000 downloads on their podcasts and all that other stuff. And I think I'm over like 5,000 now to date, which is, it's fine with me because I'm enjoying what I do. Like, I'm talking to people. I'm getting emails every day from people that want to be on the show. Hey, listen, I heard your episode with this person, and things like that. I'm gaining more traction after the first year because I still had to figure out how exactly I wanted to do everything. Like I changed the format a little bit. I changed the drop days. I have so much content that I drop 3 episodes a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then in between I'll put the preview episode of someone's, a little clip from the episode for people to see and stuff like that too. And then I'm doing a side project that I'm trying to get figured out, which is called Voice of the Voiceless. It's basically an all audio podcast that, people that can come on and share their stories that want to share them but won't feel embarrassed because they don't have to even say their name. They can come up with whatever fake name they want. And funny thing is season 3's first episode is going to be pretty interesting too, because let me tell you, if you want to hear some crazy shit, you ain't heard nothing after this story came along, And what she says in there, it gets pretty shocking. Like, you're literally hearing somebody that's on the edge and things that are happening. Like, it's a roller coaster. And then when she hits that one point that's literally going to shock everybody, when she says the next thing after the clip, I'm going to set the clip up, though, so you're going to hear her about to say what she's about to say. And it gets crazy, though. But, like, she's even requested not to be on the camera because of her identity. She's that afraid of what is going on, But that's not the first time I've had that happen. I've had several different authors come on that say that, they can't have their identities on the camera due to their own safety and things like that, too. And a lot of them are narcissistic survivors, things like that, too. One woman, she was like 20 minutes away from me in Houston. When I was in Houston, she was like 20 minutes somebody on the north side. And I thought that was funny, too. But, it's been great, man. Like, I get all these different things from people. People send me signed books all the time. Hey, Pete, thanks for being on the show. If I had a 3-time returning guest come back, this season, there's a 3-time one. She'll be back for a 4th appearance when her next book comes out. It's great because, like, I just enjoy meeting new people. Like I've made so many new friends. I have new people. I meet other podcasters that do shows, like you and everybody else. Now I add you to my network of people, but like I network with so many different people on a daily basis. I send so many people off to other people's shows. Like, hey, listen, I know a show you should check out. Let me get their contact information for you. I'll get, and then so my name gets mentioned a lot for where I'm at. Though I have a friend in Canada that has a show that she just had 100,000 followers on YouTube. Me and her were having this conversation the other day. She said, "Well, how come it is I hear your name more than I hear my name?" It's all about the word of mouth. It just depends who you're talking to. It's all about how you network yourself to people, and the interactions you have with people. Like I don't think I've ever had a bad interview except for three of them, which we were barely getting through them because it was like you're asking these people questions about themselves and they don't want to talk. It's like, then what are you doing here? The show isn't about me. It's about you. I'm here interviewing you, asking questions about you, and then you're giving me zero. It's like, huh? What?
Yeah, I've had a few where I was like, okay, you wanted to come on the show
Mm-hmm.
and you're giving me nothing.
Exactly.
I literally told you what the premise of the show was. Like you telling your story, what everything you've gone through, and you're not. And then all of a sudden now you're just like, I had such a traumatic childhood, and the only thing that really happened to you was your parents split up, but you lived a great life after that. Like, I mean, great for you, and I'm super appreciative of getting to talk to people. But that's like as bad as it sounds. Like this show only works if your life is shit, and you somehow have made it out of that shit.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
I do have a question.
yeah. Go ahead.
So, with all the interviews and as much as have you had one interview where it just got you like
Oh. Oh. Where, where I broke down. Oh
after you
yeah.
ended after the end of or after the end of the recording you stopped, you said your goodbyes, blah blah, and then afterwards you were like, fuck.
You know, there's three times in the show I've ever felt that way. Okay, so one of them was a woman that runs a podcast called "You Have the Power." Like we had a conversation about our narcissistic exes, man. Afterwards, it was so mentally draining. I was like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna go take a nap after this." And that's when I learned that because I'm an empath and I'm energy sensitive and things like that. So these things I learned at this point. But those whatever narcissistic conversations come up, I have to prepare because afterwards I am so drained from the conversation because you're so emotionally charged about them. The next one would have been Tiff Carson was the woman I talked to. She was talking about her brother. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's the first time I ever broke down on the camera with her. It was the hardest story you've ever heard in your life. You're hearing this guy get abused. This guy has drug problems. This guy ends up taking his life. And she starts breaking down, and I'm choking up on the other side of the camera with her because it's just so like you're so invested in the story of what's going on. And then number three was it the other side of the gun? The woman named Susan Snow came on the show and she told the story about what happened with her dad, who was a cop, and he ended up getting gunned down, unfortunately, outside the front of her brother's school. And she was like, she didn't know what was going on. And then she went through so many struggles in the process. Like she's telling this story and she's breaking down. I'm choking up. I'm like, trying to keep it together the whole time this conversation is going on, but it was so hard to hear. We've had some crazy moments too. Like we had a guy admit that morning he thought about killing himself. Like there's a guy named Brian that was on the beginning of the show, the first year, the right in the beginning of the new year. He come on in the 15 minutes into this conversation. He's like, yeah, I was having these thoughts this morning. I had the gun in my hand. I'm sitting at the edge of the bed and I'm just like, I'm not on the camera, not saying anything. I'm just sitting there going, holy fuck, what is going on? Because he's talking about this and he's mentioning these things. And I'm just like, oh shit. And he's literally saying it live. We're live recording this, mind you. This is a live show. These are live comments coming in. People are like freaking out in the comments going, oh my God, is he saying what I think he's saying? I'm like, oh yeah. Cause then he comes and he circles back to it and he keeps going back to talking about it. Then he's fine right afterwards, which was interesting because when you get to those conversations, like I said, it's interesting when you get into them. And then when you come back to them, you see how the conversation and the emotion and the energy of the guy changed the whole way. His whole demeanor changes the whole time after he finally gets it off his chest because he was broken up by his friend who ended up taking his own life a few months prior to that. And his friend was on his way, changed the world. We look at currency and things like that. He was telling me a story about it. He's so broken up about it. And then, his thing was that he was trying to teach children how to emotionally regulate. So he's working in an app. It's like 15 minutes a day for these kids to learn how to learn what emotions are because we don't teach them what it is. So those are the three times like it was like, whew. I had to take a break afterwards. I was so emotionally drained. It was the craziest stories you ever heard because like you're so invested in what's going on, and being an empath means you really feel what these people are feeling. And like I said though, Tiff Carson probably was like one of the top ones. That Tiff Carson was the one that was most draining. But the narcissistic conversations always come up. They're always just draining afterwards because it's hard to. They're just hard conversations because I went through that kind of stuff. I went through that stuff for 15 years, man. I felt everything this woman was talking about. I knew everything she was discussing. It's like I went through similar simulation. We were comparing things and we were so much alike. It was crazy.
Wow. I know that for me, um, and this show, I've had a few episodes where the women were talking about their exes and their narcissistic, whether it be their narcissistic like boyfriend or husband.
Hmm.
Had a few. I had one where she talked about her dad actively trying to kill her at her entire life, and it got me. But I know, like for me, like you, I'm an empath, and I have my own issues. Like I'm easily addicted to shit. So like whenever I started this, I got easily addicted. I was like tunnel vision.
Hmm.
Like I was like this show was everything to me. I was putting everything off in the back burner, dating. Unfortunately, like like it happened with my kids sometimes. Um, I had to take a step back because I was like, if I continue down this road, as as great as like I feel like this show is, what this show does,
Hmm.
but I was like, what's it doing to me?
Exactly.
Has your show, I mean, really like, affected you in a way to where you're like, am I doing the right thing by doing this podcast thing? Have you had that moment of like,
Early on, yes.
second guessing?
Early on, yes, because I had to plan things around things. Like Mondays were pretty much closed off when I was doing the live version. So that's why I went to where I'm at now, is where I'm pre-recording, because now I can move my schedule around and reschedule with people. At first, it was like I don't want to reschedule because I felt bad. Now it's like I got to reschedule. I have to reschedule. I'll get it eventually recorded. There's that's how I met a couple friends. We actually had to reschedule a few times, and then we finally got on together. And it was just the greatest thing ever. But it's really what it comes down to. You got to prioritize things, like, that's why my schedule is Monday, Tuesdays, and then the rest of the week is pretty much me doing what I want to do, because I need to be careful with, getting so worn out, because I was doing, like I said, I was doing 2 interviews a day. I was working overnights. I wasn't sleeping. And the way these schedules were going, it's like I was staying up all day and I was sleeping like maybe 2, 3 hours a day. And then my ex had a little one that stayed with her in the summer. So it was even harder when I was recording, because I get up, take her to the park, and then I went to bed, and I had to keep an eye on her at the same time. So like I put a gate up in front of her room, but I went and did stuff with her. But it was hard at first balancing everything. Now it's like, I'm by myself. I still prioritize myself over anything else. If I'm not fully mentally prepared, I feel like I'm just not having a good mental health day, I'll reschedule people, even though I know people have been waiting months to talk to me. But at the end of the day, if I can't give you 100% me, I'm not going to do it, because I have too much integrity in what I'm doing. The response I'm getting from the show, and the emails I'm getting every day, and the different people that want to be on it, the people that are saying that they appreciate what you're doing, and all this other kind of stuff, it goes with that though. But it's a balancing act at the same time. You have to put yourself first, because if you don't do your own self-care, you're not doing yourself any justice. If you're not taking care of yourself, what good are you to everybody else? And that's what happened. Is when I started going to this schedule, though, was when I changed it. It was so much easier because it was just becoming grueling. I wasn't sleeping at all. Like, people are asking me, like, when do you sleep? I'm like, never. And then I ran into the FBI sleep doctor. This was a fun episode, okay? So Dr. Lee and I were talking, and she gave me a lecture the whole hour about how I needed to sleep, and Pete, you need to sleep, this and that. Your sleep is, your shift you're working is very carcinogenic for you, and things like that. So, um, it was up until I met another podcaster. She has a show called The Shit That Goes on Her Head. And this is why I go. This will lead to the thing about numbers, guys. If you're listening, if you ever want to start a podcast, the numbers really don't matter right at first. It's more about consistency, because she had been doing her show for like 6 or 7 years. Didn't really see any traction, but kept doing it because that's what she enjoyed. So she said that her numbers started going up. At the time we recorded, she had 2.8 million downloads on her show. And she's sitting across from me doing the show with me, which is great, because like I've had a lot of people in the top 1 to 5% of their podcasts being like popularity wise. I've had the woman from what is it? hysterically, what is it? God, what is her name? Hillary something. I can't think of her name. So she used to be a news desk, but now she's got like the like top 1% holistic podcasts and things that came on, stuff like that. But when I met Gretchen and I are really good friends. She had come on the show and told her story about how she was a suicide survivor and things like that, and all like how she struggled. And she was talking to me off camera. She's like, "Have you ever thought about bulk recording your show?" Because I was telling her my schedule. She's like, "Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea. You should try and change it up." She's like, "You should look at bulk recording. Like, just do all your recordings one day of the week, and that way you're good to go. Figure out how many days you're going to do your drops and everything else. And plan everything out. That way you can get it done, and you have the rest of the week to focus on yourself. So you like your Monday." So my days off, usually that's my Mondays. Mondays are my days off. So Sunday's usually my day. I just kind of do my own thing. I prepare for the show. And when I mean preparation, I just look at who I'm going to talk to, look for a few lines, and I jump into conversation. I don't think I've ever really prepared for half of these episodes. So all the stuff you're hearing me say is just me, straight up just me talking to them, and things like that too. But it's a balancing act, just like anything in life, and I have a addictive personality. So like when I used to play video games a lot, I play them like a lot. Like I spent all my time, and like time it's just gaps. But now it's like I prioritize my sleep and everything else, because if I don't, it just wasn't going well. But now I'm seeing different things. Like I'm losing a lot of weight. I'm getting myself in better shape. My blood sugar numbers are going down because I'm diabetic as well. So I have to play that into factors too. So a lot of that stuff I have to watch and things like that too. I do still consume an ungodly amount of Monster and everything else. I do hear about that every day from my friend Catherine. She gives me a hell about it all the way from Australia. Hey, put down the energy drinks, and like she's not even in the same room with me. It's like saying, "Yeah, the spirits are telling me put your drink down." I'm like, "Thanks, Cat. Thanks."
Yeah, yeah. So, like, when you decided to do your podcast, did you have a uh like did you have any interest in podcasting before? Did
Mm-hmm.
you have a favorite one?
I actually had a podcast prior to this one. It was called Peace Corner Store. This was my first taste of podcasting. I was doing it all from my phone because I was using Anchor back when then Spotify and Anchor were one
Oh yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So we were just kind of fucking around, doing a bunch of stuff. But I've always liked podcasts. I liked Your Mom's House was a really good one for me. Kill Tony is one of my favorite ones to listen to now. I love a lot of comedy ones. Mental health ones really weren't big at first for me until I was on the show mostly unavailable. Then I started following her episodes and watching hers. One of my mentorees, Jay, he runs a podcast called Rock and Recovery. I listen to his all the time. Mentally Badass was another one, actually, one of the first mental health podcasts I ever listened to. The girl that runs that one, Justine, I had her on the show prior to that, but I've been listening to a lot of her stuff because a lot of the guests I had coming on were on her show. So I kind of want to get a feel for what kind of conversation was like with these people, just so I knew how to prepare for like what we were talking about. That's like the only level of prep I actually did. But I've always loved podcasts. I've listened to them all the time. I still listen to them all the time.
Yeah, it's honestly, whenever before I started mine, uh, I had zero idea what the fuck a podcast was. And then I went to Planet Comic Con in Kansas City, and I met Michael Rosenbaum.
Hey, there you
And
go.
I,
Okay.
while and whenever I was in line, I was talking to one of the guys there, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of? Have you ever listened to his podcast?" I was like, "What the fuck is A? What the hell is a podcast?" And then B, obviously no. And so they were telling me, and like I'm looking up on my phone as I'm in the line, and I was like, I'm listening to it, and so like I was really inspired by what he did, like interviewing his friends,
Hmm.
like talking about mental health, and I was like, you know what? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like put it out there to like I was involved in a Facebook mental health group, and I was like, hey, so this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you guys think? And then instantly, like everyone's, oh yeah, yeah, everybody, like everybody was so supportive, and I was like, okay. And then I just fucking went with it. And like the first episode, I was like, if I'm gonna have people on my show trying to talk to them about their childhood, the things that they went through, I think that the first episode should be mine. Like my story. If because if I'm gonna do it, I was like, I should be the first one to tell my story. And to this day, whenever I introduce people to my show, I was like, okay, so uh my the first episode's my story. I will tell you this: if you cry I'm sorry. So,
He's like, I'm
because I
sorry
get
for
it a
making
lot.
clear, but it's like you just had to know what's going on. No, man, I didn't have that strategy. I set out from the beginning. I did nothing but interviews, and people said that that was very interesting. How I just went for that, and since then, dude, I've gotten invited to a bunch of media panels and things like that too. Like the one I did in October. When I tell you I was the least experienced person there, there's some people with Golden Globes that are introducing us on the panel, and these guys have so much experience compared to me. These guys are booking for Jerry Springer, Oprah Winfrey, CNN, all these places. It was like you felt out of place, but it was great because I met so many people at the same time. But like I said, I didn't really talk about myself. I told a little bit about myself. That was very little, but like I said, at first I just wasn't ready. But as I went on further, I just said, fuck it, I'm just going to go for it. Because everybody kept asking about me. Like, it was my good friend Vanessa that runs Humanity 2.0. It's like, but we didn't talk about you. I'm like, yeah, but yet again, this isn't about me. When you start your show, I'll come talk about me. And I think she was one of the first people I really started opening up about, like, a lot of my struggles and things I was dealing with in the back scene and, things like that. Because I didn't start doing a lot more guest spots until the 2025 is when I started doing more shows and people's shows that started inviting me to come do their podcast. I've been a couple people's first episodes. I know I just did one this past weekend. What is it? Unapologetically Marin, the Cornbread Chronicles. I met Marin on TikTok, and her and I fell in the same space and everything like that. Somebody had suggested her to me because I do a lot of networking with that too. Which TikTok's a really great place if you haven't been on for mental health people. You'd be amazed the type of people you find. You find so many different people, so many different circles of things. As you go around finding people and things like that too. Facebook was a big one. The first person I ever interviewed, I don't even remember what her name was, Corey something. She was on. The second person now is the one that's been on 3 times now in the show. Me and her are really good friends. She's actually the author, Melissa Kim Corder. She is do you think she's 3-time international bestseller now? But when I met her, she was a 2-time international bestseller. She did a lot of shadow working and things like that too. And Melissa was like one of the second people I ever talked to on the show. And then I had to call my school shooting survivor that was in the Facebook group I found. I didn't realize the whole story, dude. That one was wild, bro. Like, she was like, well, I'm under the desk and I could see the guy's eyes. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, you didn't know where that conversation was going if you didn't know who this person was. Because when we got into it, she was like, yeah, I was sitting there. I could see the whites of the eyes of one of the shooters. I was like, oh no, what the hell, dude? This is insane. So I never did a solo episode. I'm probably going to end up just doing a recap for season 2 in between the last episode of season 2 to season 3. I'm going to branch it over and just talk a little bit about it, give a little preview of what season 3 is coming down the line and stuff like that. It'll be the first solo episode I've ever done in the show's history. But I just kind of felt like it was right. I'll just recap a little bit, talk about some of the things that we discussed, and all the kind of things like that, and then work on getting a little preview for season 3. Because, like I said, season 3 is going to be really interesting this time. I do have a bunch of other people coming on. I've got an Olympic bobsledder this week. I got an interview with, actually tomorrow I interview with him. There's a 2-time Emmy-winning producer that's reached out to be on the show, an ex-National Geographic photographer, an ex-White House photographer as well. He reached out in my emails to be on the show as well. And just some of those kind of things are coming down the line. I have some other TikTokers coming out that if was interested to know more about them, and things like that. Because when we're on the internet, you really wonder what people deal with in the back scene. Because everybody could show you that they're okay, but what is it really like when they turn that camera off? What is the real person you're seeing, or what are they dealing with that they're not telling people about?
Right. So I do have a question. Whenever it comes to people talking to you about your stuff, do you deflect a lot?
At first, yes. Now I don't. I go right into it. I broke down recently on a friend's show called Looking Through the Glass when I really started opening up about all my struggles and what my life has been like for the last few months, from that attempt on what's going on. But at first I did deflect a little bit because I was just like, I didn't know how much of the story I wanted to tell. I didn't know how I felt about it. I just wasn't okay with sharing it. But now it's just like, I just think I woke up one day and was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to let it rip cord and go. Like, at this point, that way I'm completely out there, because you can Google me, okay? You can Google me, you can chat GPT me. At this point, there's really nothing else that can be hidden anymore. Like, hiding it's really not worth it anymore, because eventually somebody's going to find out. So I'd rather be the person that tells you what happened versus you hear it from secondhand information from somebody else.
Yeah, it is. These days, the more out there you become, it is easier to find you or learn
Well,
about you or learn
well,
of you, I guess,
if
not
you
really
Google
about
what it
you.
says about me, though, it says that I'm real, authentic, and everything else. And I was trying to keep true to that because when I edit the show, I very little edit it. I keep it as raw and real as possible.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, I am the same way.
it's like, how am I going to be that if I'm not honest with people about who I am myself? You know what I mean? And it's just like, I had to make a decision halfway through the first season. I was just like, you know what? It's just time. I just need to do it. Enough people are asking, hey, what's up with Pete? Hey, what about Pete? What about you, Pete? Because I told them little bits. Like I tell them about, I was abandoned as 10 and things like that. But some of them already knew. Like there's a guy I met, the last person I did audio wise before we did the network thing. Dr. Tim, he was on. He said within 10 minutes, he already knew exactly what was going on. He didn't tell anybody. He was like, yeah, he goes, yeah, hey, listen, let me ask you a question. He started leading up to us, hey, were you abandoned when you were a kid? I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, because the way you're talking and the things you're doing, it makes sense like that. I'm like, how did you know? He goes, well, I've been doing this 35 years. And, from him, I learned that if you listen to what people are saying, a lot of times you can pick up on the dialogue of what they're saying, the context of the conversation, how they avoid certain subjects. All these things, if you're listening to what people are saying, you can pick up on what's going on. And a lot of times you can be really close to the truth without even knowing it. Because you're like, all right, well, I know. Like I had a girl I was talking to that it's on a TikTok group I'm a part of. She had said some things, and I was just thinking, okay, and how she answered them led me to exactly know what she was a part of it. She was an SA victim. And how I knew is because she would say certain things, she'd avoid certain things. The questions and stuff she'd say, or like she'd be really cautious about certain things and she'd say things, things I started picking up in my mind that I knew from doing enough of these interviews and talking to enough people. You start to realize where these stories are going without people saying it. It's like, okay, well, I understand where you're going. You don't have to say anything else, is what I'll tell them. Because I know exactly what she's talking about, but I didn't say it out loud to anybody else. Nobody else knew that I could tell that what's going on, but I knew where she was coming from based on the things she was saying and the tone of voice she was using with things. And it was really interesting because like, I started learning that, when you really pay attention to people, you start to figure things out pretty quick. So, which was really fun to learn because it's like, okay, I know where this conversation goes. And then when you tell people, they're like, how did you know? Like, I'm just telling you, like, if you watch, there's patterns to everything you do, everything you people do, the pattern, history of patterns, the things that people do. There's always a pattern to something you're doing. A lot of times they tell you to break the pattern. Like with addiction, a lot of people that are addicted, they go through the same patterns. And funny thing with that is that a lot of people, when they relapse, people make a big deal about it, but it's part of the addiction process. A lot of people struggle, and I told a friend that actually too. I said, listen, whatever you do not give her a hard time if she relapses because she already knows she messed up. She doesn't need your help to know that she messed up. Just be there for her because she needs you to understand that, these are things are going to happen. She's going to slip up and things are going to happen. But it's harder to quit than you think it is. You want her to stop the next day. It's not easy. She can't stop that. It's hard. A lot of these guys don't make it out after that. And things like that too. So like I said, it's just interesting.
It definitely is the way. Whenever you are talking to somebody, and it could be like the first time ever, like kind of like what we're doing here. Uh, you really can, if you're really good, if you've listened or had conversations with people for like an extended period of time, you can pick up on certain things. And
Mhm.
like I like to think that like I'm able to do it. Uh, too. I sometimes I'll do it and not even realize it that
Yeah.
I'm doing it. So like yeah, I get it. Okay, so we've talked about like your podcast, but what's Pete like without the podcast?
I'm a huge nerd. I've been diaboling your Spider-Man merchandise in the back wall. I'm planning to come steal it. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I love anime. I love movies. Movies in particular, just because I like cinema itself. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. Things like that too. Whenever I'm not on the show, I'm reading a lot of books and things, which is weird for me because I normally don't read books. I get a lot of books sent to me, things like that. So I check out different things because I'm always curious to learn more things. I'm usually on TikTok. You can find me hanging out doing things. I'm working on uh, building my presence there a little more, having a little fun. I'm a part of an agency on there called Pyro Legacy, and we all get together. And it's nice because you get to talk to people and things like that. Because what we're all craving is that human interaction. So it's nice. I don't have to leave my house and things like that too. I'm usually at work. If I'm not at work, I'm usually playing a game. If not playing a game, I'm usually watching a TV or anime or a movie or things like that. I do some conventions here and there. I was a big pop collector. So like I'm in the process of trying to get all my Dragon Ball Z pop signed by every voice actor that there is. I'm missing a few. I know like Goku and Vegeta, the two I don't have out of the group, Android 17 and a few others, but I have a whole big collection of them. Stuff like that. And when I've always communicating. I have three girls of my own that I don't really want. They really didn't talk to me until this year. Which I don't blame them. I was the worst person ever to them. I went through a lot with them. They went through a lot with me too, and it leads you back to that. If you're not good enough for them, how are you going to be there? How are you going to do anything for them if you don't take care of yourself? At the end of the day, I wasn't in a good place for them. They went to live with their mom. They all hated me. But now that we're on the speaking terms now, because they can see that I'm not the same person. I've been doing the work. I'm putting in the work. I'm working on myself to try and get myself in a better place. And things like that too. I'm going through a divorce and all that stuff, which is never fun. That's
Oh God, no.
but it's a mutual thing though. We both agreed that it just wasn't working out after that conversation. At the end of the day, even with all that said, it's just like, and things like that, man. I'm just planning new things. I'm working on merchandise for the show. Is another thing I've been working on the back scene. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do there. I'm actually thinking about doing trading cards because, since I'm a nerd that kind of goes there, I found a place that'll print them. So I'm kind of going to think of some Pete versus Anxiety trading cards of just like different guest cards of people that have been on the show. Some of the friends of the show that I've had on the show that, I'm thinking about asking some of them to sign some of the cards and just randomly placing them in a pack or doing contests for people to have them. I've had a lot of bands on the show and things like that too. I still have a lot of them that are really good friends, like Lucy Noor from the band Haunter. She's a good friend of mine. She's a tattoo artist out of Houston. She has songs that have downloads of 500,000 and plus. Of just straight up 500,000 plus, 20,000 plus followers on Instagram when I met her originally. Probably the coolest person I ever met, and she was a big mental health advocate, And then we find out when we were talking to Lucy that she has BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, which is a really interesting one when you get into it, because that one has been coming up lately too. The girl I interviewed the other day with Marin, she was on my show, found out she has BPD as well, and it was just interesting to hear the struggles that people dealt with and things like that too. And it's just like I do a lot of fascinating things, man. I said on YouTube, I'm pretty much trying to keep busy because if I don't, I feel like I'm just gonna go crazy. So it just kind of given what day it is and what I'm doing on those days. Well, the Mondays and Tuesdays usually my recording days. Sundays I'm just kind of doing whatever. I'm always live on TikTok, so if you ever come and see me on TikTok, y'all can come on and hang out with me if you want, ask me questions. Stuff like that, and I'm always looking for new people for the show. Even though I'm booking into April, I still take other people that come on, random people that message me, hey, listen, I want to be on your show, or hey, I got a story for you. Okay, cool, let me know. We'll figure it out. Like I have more flexibility to my schedule now. So like I usually keep it to those 2 days, but then I'll use the other days for any special guest I invite to come and things like that too. That way I have more room to do things. So, I'm just doing anything possible but sitting still.
It's are you afraid that if you stop, everything will hit you?
It does. There's some days it does. There's some days I do stop. I just have to say enough is enough. Like there's days where I cancel all my recordings and just kind of sit there and do nothing. And it just depends. Like I deal with the same things everybody else does. My depression some days is worse than others, but I've learned different things that help. I meditate. I talk to my inner self a lot of times. And it's anybody that hasn't seen season 2 of the show yet, go check out the second episode with Julian. You'll get a lot of really insight to who I am and a lot of things I struggle with. And, we get really deep in the conversation. It went from me interviewing Julian to Julian and I having a therapy session live on the show. I've done star chart readings on the show, man. If you've never done one of those are really fucking fun to do. I got a lady that she's going to meet that'll do it with you. She'll talk about it. She'll look at your chart and she'll tell you everything about you without you telling her anything about you. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen because, like,
Oh wow.
where all the stars align, it was interesting to see, like, like some of the things that we highlighted where, like, the podcasting thing came up. A lot of female friends, which I have a lot of friends that are female, came up, and all these other things just kept making sense. Me having trouble with my mom was in my star chart as well. Then you find out what moon you are and all these things and how these different characteristics affect your personality as a person, which all lined up. And I didn't tell her a single thing. The only thing she knew about me is that I interviewed with the person that she co-hosts another show with. She knew that her and I had talked, and she mentioned my name. And the other person said, "Oh yeah, I know Pete. I know exactly who that is." And it was telling her a little bit about me, not a lot though, because when we interviewed, she was like, "Hey, what's all the information you need?" And I said, "All right, cool. I'll see you in a little bit. We'll have a conversation about it." And then we went through it, and we were talking about the astrological signs. and all the houses that these stars would fall into, and that what those characteristics of the house would be. So it's a real in-depth episode we did. I am working on doing human design. The Chinese zodiac calendar is another one that's coming down the list, and then there was another thing. Um, I'm gonna get a chakra reading from somebody. I have to get with this person. I know I'm supposed to do it, but I've been busy getting other things done, dealing with other shit. So I'm up for any new experiences. A lot of these people I meet offer to do things with me. Hey, listen, you want to do a star chart reading? Hell yeah, let's go do it. Hey, do you want to do a chakra reading? Let's do it. I did an energy healing session. Those are fun to do. Like all this really cool shit you get to see as you go, and things like that. So I stay busy.
Well, I mean, I guess, at the end of the day, trying to keep yourself busy is the name of the game.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, one of the questions that I like to ask on the show is, what do you appreciate the most about your life right now?
God, I just appreciate having the opportunity to do this show every week. I mean, like it's been the greatest thing ever. Ever since I started the show, I've had the best time ever. I think mentally I'm in a better place. Physically, I'm in a better place. It just everything overall, man. This show has done so much for me, and it's like all these people have done is come have a conversation with me, and and I love it, man. It's just like it's the thing I love doing every day. It's like and the fact that it's taken off like it is in the future. There's no telling what's going to happen next. Like I've got more invites to go do these other panels and things like that. Had I not done this, I don't think I would have been this socially active on anything possible and done any of the things I'm doing now. So I this is the greatest thing I've ever done. Is decide to change and go do this show. Had I listened to my ex when I originally started this and said not to do it, I would have never had any of these opportunities. I would have never met all these people, these amazing friends that I've made, and things like that too. I don't think I would. I don't even think I'd still be here, honestly, because the way this thing has been going is like it's a therapy session every time. You get to talk to these people, learn new things from them, and then I'm taking the techniques I'm learning from these guys and trying them, applying to myself to help out. And then the other thing too, a lot of people come to me and ask me questions, and it's nice that I can help them. Like, hey, listen, let me go hit up my Rolodex of like 300 plus people here. I'm sure I got somebody who falls in one of these categories of something you need. So. I like I said, man, the show has been the greatest thing for me ever. I think if I never started it, I don't know where I would be at this point.
I mean, I definitely agree. I know my show. It has helped me. I think to me, I feel like it's made me a better person.
Yeah.
It's definitely taught me a lot more. The difference between sympathy and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, like I thought, like whenever I'd hear people talk about, what they went through, or I'm watching people, like having all these emotional or mental breakdowns, I'm like, oh, I felt bad for them. But I think whenever I started interviewing people and really listening to them, and I think you can agree, whenever you really listen to them,
Mm-hmm.
like 100%, you're committed. You know, you have no choice but to root for them.
Mm-hmm.
You get invested in them, and
Mm-hmm.
you learn more about yourself uh, that way, I think.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. I agree 100%. It's like you have no choice but to de-invest it. That's why I'm always wearing that's why I choose to wear headphones, and some people don't, because like I try to focus on 100% what they're saying, because like you just listening to them is enough. You could save somebody's life by just listening to what they have to say a lot of times and not even realize it. Even positive, and it's like the way I close mine out is like, one kind of action you could do could save somebody's life or even save their day. Because you don't know what that person's going to until they interact with you. And that positive moment could be the one positive change they needed the whole day. Just like that text message for you was like, I appreciate you. That was it. That one thing is what could go with them the rest of the day. And, they could feel like you've noticed them. And then maybe that's what their biggest deal was, that they felt like nobody noticed them. And then your positive interaction with them could be the next thing that saves their life and not even know it.
oh yeah, I've had several people on the show, and I've had people reach out to me after their episode aired and said, can you give this person a message to, like they don't know me, they may have never heard of me, but listening to their story has affected me in a way and has
Hmm.
made me look at my life in different ways, and it may, like, it very may have well saved my life.
Yeah, I get it.
And
Yeah.
those moments are those are like just those kind of interactions, with people that listen to your show, or that have come on your show. uh you know Man, I don't know about you, but like those moments always get me.
Hmm.
And like I'm not really much of an emotional person.
Yeah.
Like at least I wasn't up until like the last as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. When was the last time you cried?
The other day, I had my ex-wife on the phone telling me she's mad at me because I couldn't be there because her dog had passed away. She'd had for a long time and everything else. And, just hearing her break down, it hurt because, like, I like, be honest with you, when I was completely honest, and I said, unfortunately, no matter what I would have said to you at that moment, I was no good to you. That's the reason I kept myself away. When I chose to block you temporarily to put space myself, I was not in the place where I could be any help for you. And it was the hardest thing to tell her, and it hurt her breaking down about she had lost this pet that she'd been so close to. Like, they were peanut butter and jelly, literally, dude. Everywhere she went, that dog went with her everywhere too. And, like, I could feel her emotion, and I broke down with her. But I was like, I was breaking down because I'm like, I'm sorry. I just don't know what else you want me to say to you. Unfortunately, I just was not going to be any good to you. I couldn't add anything that you wanted. I couldn't be the person you wanted me to be at that moment. And she understood, though. But at the same time, she just wanted to get it out because she was mad at me about it, and things like that, too, And it's okay, man. If you got to cry, you got to cry, man. It's all right. Sometimes it's good to feel the feelings because a lot of times when you're grieving, that's a lot of times what people don't want to do. They don't want to feel the feelings, or they try to fight it off or push it down until it eventually just starts exploding. And then what are you going to do next? Who are you going to explode on? Because unfortunately that could be the next person that you see. You just start going off on them, and it's not even their fault. So, and I had a breakdown at work the last week before I went on vacation, and it was just like, it was horrible. It was horrible. I literally, all you could see in the camera is that something touched me in the shoulder, and I just went ballistic, and I just started having a meltdown. And at that point, I tell everybody the same thing: you can't help me. You have to just let me go. Like, just let me go. Just watch me self destruct. I'm not going to do anything harmful. I'm just letting it all out because I just bottled it up so much, because I didn't want to talk about it or whatever. And it was just whatever set me off. And I just went completely berserk. And my boss is like, "Were you on the floor?" No, where was you? I was like in the freezer away from it. I made sure to make it to there because I was in the cooler freezer setting of where I was working because I work overnight at a gas station. So I'm over there unloading trucks and stuff at night that come in. So I was in there, and I picked the opportune place to be was there. That way nobody had to see what was going on. My coworker opened the door and saw what was going on. Closed the door real fast, like, no, I don't want no part of this. But it's happened before. They know I struggle. They know I do because I told them when I took a vacation, I said I need to recharge my mental health. If not, I'm not going to be standing here next day because I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm going to lose my mind or something. And it's hard for people to hear that. But they understand though. They've been very understanding though. But I've never went off on anybody for that reason. I've always stepped away, or I went out back away from everybody so no one had to see what was going on. And I do weird things now that just people don't make sense to me. Like, I look like I'm talking to myself, but sometimes it's just me getting the thoughts out of my head because my anxiety likes to take them and just go off. And if I don't say them, and then when I start saying them, I start realizing how dumb they sound. So, like, sometimes I'm muttering to myself over there, and they're like, "Are you good?" "Oh, I'm good over here. I'm good. I'm just having, a conversation with myself because I'm trying to convince myself that this is stupid." But I have other things. I journal. I have an anxiety journal. I have a bad thoughts journal. I have all these different things for all these different things and tools in place that I have now that help. But, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have problems where I need to just like vent and just go completely, I may break down sometimes and just for no reason. Something may just trigger me or whatever like that. It's just something I deal with every day, but the way I deal with it is a little better than I used to do. Instead of not saying anything, I'm doing something to get the feelings out so I don't bottle them up and burst like a balloon.
I completely agree because I've worked at a gas station. I currently work at a grocery store. So the freezer is always the best place to have a mental breakdown.
Exactly.
I completely get that. But journaling, for me, I'll write. I write poetry.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I write short stories.
Awesome.
I am constantly if I'm having those parts of me that are just darkening, that's where I will try to go. It used to be um, whenever I was younger, I was involved in professional wrestling.
Oh,
So
okay. That's interesting.
that's where I would get like whenever I'd be wrestling guys that like I really know, both of us could be having like the worst fucking day, week, year, and we would just beat the shit out of each other. And then afterwards, I felt better, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so like I think it's very important that you find avenues
Hmm.
to rather it be writing in journals, uh, you know, uh, a hobby like woodworking, like like
Yeah.
something physical, because I feel like you have um, to physically get all that negativity out.
Yeah, I go to the gym, man. The gym is my favorite place to go. I got back in recently and getting myself. It's great when you start lifting and things. It's just exhilarating. I have my headphones on. Music's a really big one too. I love music. So like on my show, I usually ask people questions like about like a music related question will come up. I'm not going to ask you because obviously I'm inviting you to come on to be on the show. So we'll figure that whole thing out for sure. I'd like to come have you on and we'll get to that question though. But there is a question I do ask people that's music related. That's fun because when you hear the question you're gonna be like, okay, damn, all right, this is actually a pretty good one because like the answers you get are just endless. But yeah, I lift, man. I do lifting, like whatever you want to do. Self care could be anything you want. Watch movies, anime, play that video game with your friends, things like that too. Go on TikTok and you mentioned poetry is really great. If you're ever on TikTok, hit me up. I got a friend, she does poetry. You probably want to listen to. She does some really good stuff too, man. Her stuff is really strong too. She did one during her episode as well because she's actually season one's episode. It's actually titled "Rise of the Phoenix," and Phoenix is the girl that's going to be in the episode. So that's really all I can say right now. But the rest of the conversation it gets interesting with her. And I met her through TikTok. She's actually a part of one of my families. The guy who runs our agency actually has a podcast himself that he's restarting called Unboxed Thoughts. Nick is actually a good friend of mine. He was on the show as well, and everybody kept telling us to meet up and things like that too. So I have some interesting people for you. I'll tell you this much: if you go through any of the episodes of the people I've talked to, let me know if anybody catches your eye that you want, and I'll get you their contact information for sure, man. I guarantee they'll do it. Just mention I told you I sent you your way, and hey, listen, Pete from Anxiety said I should reach out to you. I'm interested for you being on the show. I almost guarantee half of them will say yes, and unless they're really busy, which I don't know what they're doing, but they'll let you know. Though a lot of them will say yes without even a question. They'll be like, "Okay, yeah, Pete sent you. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely." Because that's just how good of networking I've gotten with people. Like I make these great conversations and great relationships with people. There's a lot of interesting people I've had. Gretchen would be an interesting person to you. One of my proteges, Jay, would be an interesting story. You'd have to hear his story. He was in prison for like 22 years. He was an ex addict, and then there's this incident that happens that you're just gonna be like, holy shit, like literally, like what the fuck, dude? It's gonna be one of those what the fuck moments because you're gonna see it and you're gonna be like, huh, what? Because I was too. I didn't know his whole story until Jay and I met. Jay and I met through TikTok, and I told him, Jay, it's like you got something here, man. I said, you ever thought about doing a podcast? And he'll tell you that I nagged him into doing it. No, no, no. Okay, that's not how this conversation went. I saw something, and I said, Jay, I think that you should consider it because you'll get your reach farther than where you're at. You're having an influence on these people. Have you ever thought about doing one? And he said yes, and he's already had 100 episodes now since the last time. There's another two guys I met, younger guys. They started one called the Life Podcast, and it's like they abbreviate the whole thing. I told them in the next 9 episodes, actually, I'll be back to see with them, things like that too. So we've been counting down the next 9 episodes. We'll be counting down every one. I show up for every single one. I try and pop in at least and say hi to them, like, hey, listen, we're X amount away, and I'll start counting it down. Because when I first met these two young gentlemen, it's the two younger guys. They're like 20 and 21. They're doing something pretty big at that age. They're having real life conversations about things, and the two of them, Pee Wee and his partner. I can't remember what the other guy's name was, but the other guy, he does a lot of the talking. But Pee Wee's always sitting there watching you because he's getting ready to ask you something really good. He has really good questions, and then the friend fills in the space of the gap with all the real good facts and things. So they work really good together. There's a bunch of other shows. If you're ever interested in doing other podcasts, let me know. There's a whole bunch of people I have lists of people that you can go do their shows and stuff. Like the girl in Canada is an interesting one. Everybody's Addicted. Jasmine's a good friend of mine. She may be in one of the Facebook groups. That's where we met originally. So I know she floats around a little bit. But if her name pops up too, you just have to mention my name, and she'll take you on, no problem. You'll be on Canadian TV and all that kind of stuff because her show now airs on their television network too, which is kind of cool. So, and then there's like my friend that does Humanity 2.0. She was telling me, like I said earlier, she said I have the top most downloaded episode of her episodes of my interview with her was. I was like, well, you know what that means? I have to come back for another episode of this thing. And she's like, yeah, I promise. Okay, you keep saying that, but we don't do shit. But yeah, man, it's been great, dude. Like, this is the great thing. Podcasting, the people you meet are so interesting. The friends you make and the things, things like that. All the things you do. There's a site I use called Podmasters where I go and I interview people and I get paid to interview them, so I make a little money doing that too. And then my audio site actually started paying now recently. I've been making money that it pretty much covers the cost of like most of my stuff I do anyway. So I'm really doing nothing, and even at that, it's still like a hobby to me. It's not bad. I still do whatever I do. It doesn't matter. I love it. It's not about the money. Now, would I like to do it full time? Yeah, it'd be great. There other ideas I have coming down the line. Yeah, there's a couple of others we were talking about. People said I should do one of my Instagram feed because the things I send them, they're like it needs therapy. They're like, you need dude, your therapy. It needs therapy and it needs shock therapy. I'm like, yeah, maybe, man. He goes, how do you explain that video? The biggest one so far was this hot dog jello mold thing, dude. I had all these people reacting to. They're like, what the hell did you send me? I'm like, what do you mean? That's some white people stuff there, man. Come on now. They were so mad. They're like, what the hell is going on here with this?
That's great. That's one of my favorite phrases that I use every once in a while because my fiance is Latina,
Oh,
and I don't know
okay.
how many times I don't know how many times I use that's some white people shit. So
Right. Sorry, honey. Just understand that's just white people shit. You'll get it then.
yeah. All right. So last question.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. At the end of the day, um, whenever your time is coming up, what would you hope that your legacy is?
God, this is a great question. Okay, so let me think about this for a second. What would I want to be remembered? I just want people to remember at the end of the day that what I'm doing now is nothing more than just having a conversation. That Pete was the person that always wanted to just be your friend. I always want to be there for you, and at the end of the day, just always remember that you could have a conversation with somebody and it could make the world a difference. I just want people to remember me as just the guy that started a movement for this conversation to happen, and I want people to carry it on. Like after I'm done, I would like one of my kids to continue the show. If not, somebody just continue this conversation because it doesn't seem like it's happening enough. If we look at the statistics of suicide in men, it's 80%. It's just too big of a number. Like,
Uh,
what more do we need to say that we need to start doing to make this number go down? Because 10 to 14 is now the highest range of where it's happening. And 10 to 14 is way too early. We shouldn't be burying our kids. Our kids should be burying us, unfortunately.
oh yeah, but yeah, most definitely. It is. I agree that the number of males that do commit suicide is very tragic. It's alarming. As like I worry, like not just like for myself. Like I have two boys, and I
Mm-hmm.
worry about them. And because kids today are far worse
Mm-hmm.
than they were whenever we were younger.
And remember, they have more
Uh,
access to them, too. You have Snapchat, Instagram, all them other places, TikTok, everywhere else they can get you versus where we were. You had the phone, internet, and then face-to-face. That was it.
yeah, yeah. So okay, well, I guess I just have one final question. Does Pete like Pete?
Most days, Pete doesn't like Pete, but I'm working on it. It's a battle I have every day. I question myself worth every day, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a battle I have. Like if you asked me that at the beginning of the show, I would have never admitted that, but now it's very relevant that I every day question myself. But I mean, I do therapy and things like that. I am doing the things I need to do to work on that. So it gets better every day that I just I work on it. But I mean, it's not an overnight thing. There's days I will struggle. There's other days I will call people in my action plan and tell them that I'm having that kind of day. But I'm trying to do what I can at the end of the day.
And that's all that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
It is very important. No matter, I think, with self-esteem and with self-image, that if you're able to look at yourself in the mirror, I would hope that like you're able to be like, okay, that guy's been through some shit.
Yeah.
That guy may not have always made the best decisions, but I see that he's trying. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with praise. I am horrible with attention, but I'm very much aware of the people that I impact. I'm aware of the things that I've done that have helped people. I'm not one of those people that I like to publicize it.
Yeah.
I like everything that I do to be, you know, under the rug, just out of the limelight. Because I'm not one of the. It bothers me so much when people do great things and fucking publicize it. It just, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like I like I said, like I grew up very humble. So like it just and always kind of felt ignored. So like whenever I did something, I've never been one to just be able to accept the praise.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God. Especially when this show started and people were talking to me about it, I was like, no, 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 no.
Yeah,
it's never about me.
I was the
show's
way.
not about me. It has my name on it. It's not about me.
Yeah, no, I get you, man. It was the same way too. I didn't talk about it. Now I talk about it at everybody because it's like, I'd like to do this full time and just that's all. I'd love to do it or do some other podcast. I'd love it. I have tons of people that approach me out doing different things. They're like, oh, but then when they realize how much work it is, then they're like, oh, never mind. It's like, I'd love to do this full time. Honestly, just it's one of my things I'd love to do at the end of the day. But if not, I mean, I'm still going to do it regardless. I enjoy what I do. The people that come and tell me they like what I'm doing, all the people I'm meeting, all the different people I see, and then it gets easier when you learn how to let people talk for you. Because in a sense, if you think about it, you're not talking about yourself anymore. These other people are confirming what you're doing. So like with Podmatch is great because if people leave messages, if you go to my website, PeteVersusAnxietyPodcast.com, there's a whole section in there. You can see where people have left different messages about me and things that it was like, and it gives you perspective of what people are getting into with you. And it's like, I don't have to talk about myself most rooms I go into. These people are talking about me. Like I show up and then it's instantly they're just raving about what I'm doing or they're telling other people what I'm doing and things like that too. And when you get to that part, it's nice because then you don't have to explain everything. Someone else is already doing it for you, and it gives you more reputation because people give you reputation better because people are speaking for you. So now it's more than one person talking to you. We all know that one voice is great, but more voices are even better because it's a stronger message. And everything like that. So I mean, it gets easier after a while for talking about it with people, but people find out what I do, they're all interested, and they're like, oh, what do you talk about? And like the responses are 50-50. Some are like, okay. And some people I don't even know. I've never even met these people. I've gone and listened to the show and came back and told me how much they enjoy it and things like that. And all the comments you get and all that other kind of stuff is great, but it's like, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for me. It used to be for everybody else, but now it's for Pete. I'm doing this because I enjoy this. I'm offering the space to the people, as well. But I'm doing it for me because it's like at the end of the day, this is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy hearing people's stories. I enjoy giving people that space to be heard because not a lot of people will. And and so, like I say, sometimes that's the one thing that can save somebody's life is just listening to them.
I definitely agree because all it takes is one. If you can save one person,
exactly,
that's all that matters. So,
that's really all that does matter.
All right. Well, Pete, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, especially such short notice and the way.
Oh, I was doing it before. I'm sitting there looking at my phone and I seen the message come through. I was like, hell yeah. I'm like, what are you doing in about 30 minutes? I got nothing to do. And the message back was like, yeah, all right. Like, hey guys, I'll be back. I got to do a podcast interview.
All right, so I'll let we've kind of like all through the show we've talked about it, but here's your chance. Plug everything that you do, man.
All right, guys. Well, if you want to find me on PeteVersusAnxietyPodcast.com, like I said before, you can find me on everywhere. I'm on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to iHeartRadio. If you want to be a guest on the show, go to my website, email me, PeteVersusAnxietyPodcast.com. I will get your email. I promise you I am not ignoring them. I do get a lot of them that come in. And, when you see my calendar says I'm booking close to March, it is 100% correct. I am booking close to March and things like that too. Just bear with me. If you need something outside of that schedule, just ask me. I'm very flexible when it comes to those things. And as I always say, guys, don't ask your day is say, hey, how's your mental health?
That's a great way. That's a great way to do it. All right, so Pete, thank you very much, and I look forward to having future conversations with you. Best of luck, and this is one of the things that I like to do because I know I hate whenever it comes to me, but so I just like doing it to other people. Just listening to you, just getting to know you, I could see the passion. I can see just how much like this means to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Dude, you seem like you're just one of the you're a good dude, and I appreciate the success, appreciate what you do. So thank you for that, for all of humanity. We appreciate what you're doing, and the conversations that you have. They're needed. They're needed now more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
In this crazy world that we live in. You, sir, are a gem. You are, like I said, a good dude. So thank you very much, not just for coming on the show, but for everything that you do. I wish you nothing but success, continued success. So thanks again, man.
Definitely, man. Appreciate it. Don't forget, guys, March 4th, Season 3 drops in. You don't want to miss this one, I'm telling you.
All right, man. March 4th. You heard it. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. All right.
What's up, guys? In Your Head with Shannon Stanford is a podcast where Shannon talks to everyday people with everyday problems. Everyone has a story, and every story should be told. So you listen right now to Shannon's podcast on Spotify and many other places, y'all. Come on, man. Be the light. Peace.
So, well, that was an interesting conversation with Pete. I actually learned a lot about not just him, but what we're doing here. The man likes to be busy, but the man also, has reasons. The life that he had. Not everyone can bounce back from that, and it's very important that not only did he take the time to sit back and reflect and rearrange his entire life, his entire mindset to recognizing that he needed to be better. And he did that, and he's doing a great job. The man is on fire. He's phenomenal. He's a force. And I love that about him, just, getting to know him, getting to talk to him. I learned not just about Pete, but I learned about podcasting and what we're doing here. And, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And, he's very gracious, and he's very, honest. And I appreciate that whenever you come onto the show, that's the one thing that I ask is honesty. And he was honest to a fault. And so I appreciate Pete coming on the show. I really enjoyed learning not just, like I said, not just about him, but, everything else that he talked about. So, I mean, yeah. So go listen to his show. Go watch his show, Pete versus Anxiety. I know I will. I'm a fan now. I'm a fan of Pete the guy and Pete the show. So let's all just celebrate the wonder that is Pete. So, but yeah. So thanks again for coming and watching the show, and thank you for just what you guys don't understand is this show has saved my life on a lot of times. It has made what I do made me feel better about what I do. who it affects, and the fact that there's people that listen, there's the fact that people watch, and the people that want to come on and share their stories. It is amazing to me, and it's very humbling. So I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. You guys are what keeps this show going. I say a lot because, trying to come up with words whenever you've had so many concussions, it gets a little difficult. So, uh, I listened to one of the previous episodes and I realized just how much I do that. And it got on my nerves, but I really want you guys to know that I don't do a lot of editing on this show because I want it to be real. I want it to be authentic. This show is better whenever it's raw. And the little speech patterns are a part of who I am and what I do. But trust me, it's not lost on me. It annoys the shit out of me too. So, thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Pete, you're an amazing guy, and I wish you nothing but success. And I hope we get a chance to work together one more time, several more times, whatever. So this has been In Your Head. Remember, not everything should stay in your head. Be good to each other, be kind, be humble, be the light. If you're tired, emotionally, mentally, you're not broken. You're human. Rest isn't weakness, crying isn't failure, and healing isn't linear. You don't have to fix everything today. Just breathe. Drink water. Take one kind step today for you. You are allowed to take up space, even if you're struggling. Especially then, you matter. Always. Forever.